He's using Rust and all the contracts for Web3 as well. So that is the point here. Whenever you're trying to create a new project, you're always going from scratch and then building on top. But what if you have the possibility to use already existing projects and then expand on it, right? So that is what we will be talking about today. So first of all, why licensing, right? So as you know, licensing is the key aspect of all the open source repositories out there. So it provides legal protection, it fosters collaboration so that all of the people collaborating have equal access and equal right to use it and further propagate it. Then it ensures freedom, sustainability, it facilitates contribution and use, and it is perfect for clarifying permissions and restrictions. So if someone says that this is my repository, this is the project which is, let's say, for a world tour website, so there is a certain limitation here that you cannot use it for commercial uses. Or maybe someone is trying to create, let's say, let's take an example of React because I have uh, quite the connections with React. So let's say the React repository, they use a particular license, which is this one. And I have not mentioned this, but the license that they use is the MIT license. So what this does is that anything you make with React, you can use it further to commercialize it. So let's say agar you are making an app on, let's say, Domino's. So if Domino's uses React, they are not liable to release their source code. They wouldn't be showing their code, and they can always make money from the code that they have generated using React. But at the same time, what Linux kernel has done, they are using a license called GPL. So the GPL ensures that whichever product is now created will always be open source. So let's say Linux kernel foundation has a ton of projects. So I'm not sure of this example, but if we are taking the example of Kubernetes, so whichever project that is using Kubernetes, this is not the case because a lot of companies are using Kubernetes. But if this was the case, so the repository X, which will ultimately end up being modified into creating another organization, let's say Y, this organization Y, which will use the GPL license, will not monetize their money. They will have to release their source code. Ki this was the code we modified into this one, and now they can use it to monetize it, but they have to always show their code. Whereas Domino's, they'll have the option ki let's not show the code, and we are using it commercially and we are distributing the software. And similarly, now once Linux kernel's organization X is there in open source domain with the GPL license, the next will always be in GPL license. Once you have a license history of anything and then suddenly you hit the GPL license, the following organizations that result from the code changes will always have a GPL license. So once you have the declaration that a code will be showed, then that has to continue. Whereas for MIT license, it depends on the person who has created it. So now, how does this information that I've just told you about help you? So let's say you are making an application for your hackathons, right? So an MIT licensed repository on GitHub is not yours to access freely. So they have certain rights, they have certain limits, but at the same time, something that is from the GPL license, let's say someone, let's say a random person, Akansha, made a organization and she had her project in it where she added, let's say a school navigation system, and you are using that school navigation system to make another system for your project, which is about, let's say, school and colleges tracking. So you can use a GPL license. If she has a GPL license there, you don't have to write code for the school license system again. You can simply import her code and use it and modify it again to create a college navigation system as well. So what this did was you were completely unbiased. You gave her the rights that this was a GPL license. So yes, we used her code, but it was not illegal to do so. Also, you had a previous basis कि okay, मैंने किसी का code use किया है, तो it is a rapid development. इंस्टेड ऑफ मी मेकिंग इट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच कि मैं ये इम्पोर्ट कर रही हूँ वो इम्पोर्ट कर रही हूँ, मैं चला के देख रही हूँ कि हाउ इट्स गोइंग, इज इट वर्किंग और इज इट नॉट, अगर इसमें कोई एरर्स आ रहे हैं, तो ऐसे से करके यू आर गोइंग फॉर प्रोजेक्ट दैट इज ऑलरेडी क्रिएटेड. So in a hackathon domain where there's always time constrictions, 24 hours, 48 hours, now we even have 12 hours and 6 hours. In this stage, when people are going for no code with AI, they have certain restrictions कि इतना ही better हो सकता है. But with licensing, you can go for faster development all the time. So I would suggest कि next time you are going for a hackathon, do look for first hackathon के rules. If they're saying कि a previous project cannot be used, then so of course it doesn't make sense to use licensed projects. But in case there is a flexibility, do try to look for GPL license based projects which you can build upon further. Also, some rules are there that say कि you only have to use your own projects. So you can make your own project, uh, keep it in GPL repository, and then you can further use it further. So let's say अगर hackathon A में you created a project and you want to use it in hackathon B, you can have an license attached for GPL on that one, and then rules के according you can use that one in your project. So this will enable you to have faster development in your hackathons and maybe better luck because you have already implemented tech stacks, and it will help you learn more. And then at one stage you will be at there ki like, okay, person X ने ये बनाया था, I'm using this project, let's maybe collaborate together for a next hackathon, or maybe I'll just send a PR ki this is how you improve more on it. ऐसे करके you will increase not just your connections and possibility of winning, but also you'll have a good connect with the open source repositories and organizations, and overall it will be more beneficial is what I believe. So this is the message I wanted to convey with this talk, and I'll just go over it. And I'm not saying that MIT license is bad. Now I'll just quickly run through the benefits of both of it. So GPL, as you can see, it ensures software freedom, and it of course promotes a collaborative ecosystem, which is a boon for every open source organization out there. I'll link the sheets. I'll link the what is this link to the sheets below, and you can go through this content at your own speed. And whereas for MIT license, you this is easy to understand, and terms, they allow use, modification, and distributions with minimal restrictions. As I said, that with a React repository, you can create anything and then monetize it, and React wouldn't be, restricting you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to show your code, nothing of that sort. So use licensing deliberately, and also I believe that if you're adding licenses to your code and then attaching it to the README, just say you add na ki this is the uh, about the project, then you had let's say snippets of the project ki this is what we created, here's a screenshot of what this does, what this feature does, we have these many features, and then you add the links to your Figma files and all of that. But if you add a license and then you explain ki this is ki we are using a GPL license, and we are willing for other people to help us collaborate and improve upon it further even after the hackathon ends and all that. So eventually at one point you can make projects into organizations, right? And these are the organizations which ultimately go for, let's say, Girl Script Summer of Code, Google Summer of Code, maybe Outreach, and this is how you all scale up. So React did not start out as an organization, they started out as a framework, and they converted into MIT, and then everyone started using it and expanding upon it. And now we all know React as an organization. So you can convert your projects into, let's say, businesses or maybe organization spaces for nonprofits. And I think that would be a better use for the open source community, which we are overlooking at the moment. And that's all. Do we have any questions? I kept it short. So do we have any questions? Do we have anything to say?
Hello, ma'am.
Hey, Kiran.
Ma'am, like for example, I am working on my own project, just kind
Mm-hmm.
of practicing. So, when and I'm creating a Git repo, then that time, ma'am, which license should I go for? Like, is it required to, like, what license should I go for? Like that time?
By default, so all the repositories have MIT license. But if you're using it for personal, ki like let's say someone uses it to create, sometimes people have personal projects जो resume में डालेंगे. In that case, you can add it to an MIT wala. But in case you need more collaborators and all that, obviously a GPL license would be more beneficial. You are asking collaborators to come help you grow it more.
And ma'am, one more thing, ma'am, sometimes we want कि our repository should be private, but that time also
Hmm.
we feel that instead of that making private, make it public, and we will create a license for it that no one will use it that time. Like that time, which license should we go for it? Like code will be public, like people can see it.
Yeah.
Like for example, there is a one hackathon like I participated there, where we have to like you can say deploy the code and work we have to commit early, but people can see our code, computer can see our code. So that time if
Hmm.
there can be a plagiarism occur, so that time which like license should we go for? It's public
See.
because
हाँ.
mentors have to see it, but
Yes,
people,
that is true.
yeah.
Hackathons में all the projects are always public. In this case again, it depends on what you want to do. तो अगर you want कि सिर्फ हम ही use करेंगे इस hackathon के project को कि like you and your team, so you can add yourself as the owner and then you can invite the other team members. Let's say इस example में let's say I can see a few people here, so I'll just use your names. So Diya, Nanya, and Sujay, you can use them, use their GitHub IDs and add them as collaborators. So they'll be added to the repository, and then you can add MIT license कि and then you can certainly MIT license के बाद नीचे तुम लिख सकते हो कि what are your permissions. And it is not the case कि सिर्फ MIT and GPL licenses are there. There are endless licenses. मैं in fact I'll just share a link because there are so many GitHub licenses. This is a whole domain, and let me just share this one. Okay, I've sent it through the chat box. Yes. तो इसमें से you can decide and select कि कौन सा would be the most beneficial. But obviously, in this case, if you don't want your collaborators, yeah, maybe competitors to see your code and use them, so definitely go for do not go for GPL because GPL will enable them to use it.
Means ma'am, like that time it's better, matlab GPL is used when we want कि others can also use our code, right?
हाँ,
But at the
yes,
time of
GPL is basically
yes ma'am, but at the time
हाँ.
of competition, ma'am, I got it कि we can add as a collaborator, they will work on it, all my team members. But ma'am, the computer will also see our code now, so that time which license should we go for? Like this GPL or MIT or other one? MIT will
Do not use GPL. You can use MIT, but at the same time, the second your project or code is online on the GitHub in a private की जगह public वाला repository, anyone can view your code. So I would suggest that do not worry. Even if your competitor is trying to copy it, it is still beneficial for you because they're looking up to you na for a code. So
okay, okay.
मतलब you
But
select
actually,
the code
yeah, I got
repository
you.
उससे.
Actually, I thought there must be some kind of maybe I'm not aware. That's why I was asking. Ki if maybe there is some
No worries, no worries.
there is some like licenses and we can update it. I thought so, ma'am. Actually, I searched that time only. So they said ki we can create our license permission customize as well. Like isn't it? Like we can
Hmm.
create a
Yes.
customized licensing, and based on that we can also work.
Yes, so customized licensing में it's like there are एक तो tons of options. So I'm not sure if you can write कि ये permissions है, but you can always go for readme पे license लगा के नीचे कि this is the license and I give you the permission or I revoke the permissions for distribution of this particular code project for further enhancement या कुछ तो ऐसे करके you can write below it तो वो GitHub के उस पे readme पे आ जाता है कि this was the license used तो वहाँ पे you can edit and write the सारे के सारे features कि like what do you want exactly from this project कि like इसको distribute और कर सकते हैं और इसको modify कर सकते हैं or not.
And ma'am, one last question, ma'am. Ma'am, I have participated in one front-end hackathon. So in there we have to like kind of cloning a design kind of stuff. So ma'am, there it
Hmm.
was around 4 hours hackathon, right? First round. So I'm there like you said like this G this second hackathon, this second MIT, and the second what you said, ma'am?
GPL.
GPL. Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, like to clone that front end one, ma'am, I use some template that time, because there was a time limit
Hmm.
in 4 hours we have to do. So, ma'am, in template in like in on Google, like there are a lot of people, they just directly deploy their source code, and we when we click on it, it will automatically download from the zip. There is no any licensing like GPL and all what you said.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, that time, like, is the organizer check the plagiarism like through any way, or just it will like how they will organize, because there is no any thing they can check whether it is a GPL or open MIT.
Hmm. The
So that,
plagiarism is checked at some points. There are code plagiarism checkers, but there is nothing. I don't know if there is anything, but this becomes a finished project once you refine through the above. Let's say कोई normal college में अगर organization एक event करा रही है, तो they of course will have बहुत सारे participants and they wouldn't know कि like refined license वाला कौन सा लेना है and किसी ने किसी का code copy कर लिया या नहीं कर लिया, they wouldn't know. But as you go up, कि like you're looking through projects of Google Summer of Code या फिर you are interning कहीं पे like Google पे intern कर रहे हो, Salesforce में intern कर रहे हो, तो at there जहाँ पे वो सारे code है, they will always have licensing there. तो उस टाइम पे वो सारा प्लेगैरिज्म ऑफ कोर्स चेक होता है एंड ये सब होता है। बट इफ यू आर सेइंग कि एक फ्रंट एंड वाला 4 आवर्स का कॉम्पिटिशन था, वहाँ पे ऑफ कोर्स इतना लाइसेंसिंग पे फोकस नहीं दिया जाएगा बिकॉज़ दे आर फोकसिंग मोर टुवर्ड्स कि लाइक हू विल राइट अ बेटर कोड दैट टाइम। उस टाइम पे licensing won't work इतना अच्छे से, rather you use जो भी GPL वाले components हैं उनको you can place in your web page कि like वो ज़्यादा जल्दी better build हो सके rather than you making it from scratch. So that is the essence of the talk कि तुम पहले created components को GPL license के through use कर सकते हो। It is not कि तुम अपने कोड को इतना प्रोटेक्ट कर लो कि दूसरे लोग नहीं देख पाए या फिर लाइक क्या मेंटोर्स या फिर वहाँ के जो जजेस हैं वो इसको चेक कर रहे हैं। इट इज मोर कि तुम फास्ट डेवलपमेंट विदाउट और विद एआई कैसे और इम्प्रूव कर सकते हो। सो दैट इज द फर्क है। इफ
तो
आई एम
मैम
नॉट इफ आई
तो मैम
या गो
जैसे
अहेड।
GPL लाइसेंस वाला जो है, राइट, तो मैं डायरेक्टली उसको क्लोन करके उस पर काम कर सकता हूँ, राइट, इन शॉर्ट।
यस
एंड
यस
एंड MIT
यस।
कोड होगा, उसको भी सेम मैं क्लोन करके काम कर सकता हूँ विदाउट एनी।
एमआईटी में यू विल एमआईटी में यू विल हैव टू सी कि उसके क्या रिस्ट्रिक्शंस है और क्या परमिशंस है। एंड जीपीएल को यू कैन यूज डायरेक्टली विदाउट एनी प्रॉब्लम। बट जीपीएल में बस ये देख लेना कि अगर तुम जीपीएल कोड यूज कर रहे हो, अगर तुम लेट्स से कोई कंपोनेंट यूज कर रहे हो, तो यू कांट से कि ठीक है मैंने जीपीएल यूज कर लिया अब ये मेरा हो गया, अब ये एमआईटी है, ये नहीं होगा। जीपीएल यूज किया है तो इवन इफ तुमने इनपुट डाला है अपना कोड का दैट विल स्टे जीपीएल एंड कोई और भी उसको वायबल है यूज करने के लिए। तो यू आर गिविंग योर इनपुट्स एज वेल एंड क्रिएटिंग अ गुड थिंग बट वो जीपीएल ही रहेगा।
एंड मैम जस्ट लास्ट वन क्वेश्चन पूछना था बेस्ड ऑन योर पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस, कि जैसे हैकाथॉन्स में लाइक डू यू यूज एनी AI टूल और सम काइंड ऑफ स्टफ वेयर वी कैन डिप्लॉय और develop, we can fast the development part in like coding into it, like you are using any personal something or
I do use ChatGPT for reference. There's Copilot for reference. तो code snippets के लिए that is good. As for deploying, I don't think I'm using ऐसे deploying वाले AI tools, but I do try to see कि बाकी repositories ने क्या create किया है। तो I use GitHub code spaces to see कि उन्होंने क्या deploy करके create किया है without having to clone it all on my personal desktop.
okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Do we have any
Aditi,
other questions?
yeah, Aditi, you can ask your doubt now.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I wanted to ask whether, like, for this hackathon, do we have to use the license?
I'm not a mentor or judge for this one, so totally up to you. But I do believe that it will fetch you some brownie points.
So, ma'am, which license should I use for now? Because I'm completely clueless about it.
The second you are clueless, just go for an MIT license. That would be great. If you're using someone else's code, though, do use the GPL license if they have the
So,
GPL license themselves as well.
So how can we have a MIT license? Like, is there a repository? Is there some like a documentation for that? We can just paste it there.
Yeah, so when you're creating the repository, उसमें like आता है ना कि like you're writing the name of the repository, and if you have a permission कि like do you want it to be public or private, at that time you can select a license, and in case it doesn't show up because पहले it did, so you can always go for settings, GitHub repository की, and then select कि licensing में ये, and these are all available on GitHub Docs ki, like how you add another license. If you are on MIT license, how do you switch it to GPL or vice versa or something else, because there are a lot of tons of licenses out there.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, and anything else we can add in our GitHub repository for making it more impactful?
Hmm. I guess you can add a video walkthrough for that. I use Loom or YouTube, but I majorly use Loom software because it has like, let's say अगर मेरी screen सबको visible है तो यहाँ पे से thank you आ रहा है and that's all right, but with the loom I can add myself in a circle वहाँ पे कोने में यहाँ पे कि like I'm here and then I'm talking about कि this is the project and this is the web page, then I can just add myself एक circle में वहाँ पे and I'm speaking and that will all be visible, so I do try to recommend that to people. So Loom would be better, and if you have a video walkthrough, people would be more inclined कि like okay, पूरा मेहनत नहीं करना पड़ेगा कि कोड देख रहे हैं कि इससे क्या हो रहा है उससे क्या हो रहा है. Deployed links are good, but sometimes they go inactive, and then the entire project feels like कि अरे इसको फिर से deploy करना पड़ेगा. You can always have them as in your resume. You created it, and a Loom link out there will be like अगर even
Yes,
if
yes.
your link is not working, someone can get a gist of what the project is about.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
No worries.
Ma'am, we have a doubt in the chat also.
Okay, give me a second. Essentially, if you initially don't create a license, it will not register any license, no worries. But by default, उसको फिर भी हम MIT में ही consider करते हैं. They're saying that dot file name, it started with dot and don't display. I'm not sure I get this. Are you saying that dot GitHub files or dot gitignore files are not visible? If that is what you're asking, Harshit, so I guess that is what you're asking, but yes, the git ignore and that is not visible. But when you add a license, तो वो automatically उसके side वाले में जहाँ पे आप एक particular gist देते हो अपने project के बारे में, वहाँ पे वो visible आ जाता है. So if you go and search GitHub पे कि ये license वाले project like MIT license, तो हमेशा side में आएगा. Even if it's not visible as a file, git ignore में जाके it will always show the people कि हाँ ये वाला license इस पे लगा हुआ है, so that would never be a problem. Anything else? .env which contains API key. Hmm. It will show on GitHub. I am. I hope I've clarified your question. If I haven't, then please speak out because it is very confusing this way.